Okay, trying to go over Paladin again because my recordings keep messing up. So, uh, Season of Discovery runes for your chest. Aegis increases your block value by 30%, and damaging melee and range attacks against you have a 10% chance to increase your chance to block by 30%. Last 10 seconds or 5 blocks. Not cumulative with redoubt. So you will not be taking redoubt if you're having this, which cuts you out of taking shield specialization. There's a little give and take here. But I think that's probably, I don't know, maybe you still take this just so you can take shield spec. We'll see. Divine Storm. An instant weapon attack that causes 110% of weapon damage up to 4 enemies within 8 yards. The Divine Storm heals up to 3 party or raid members, totaling 25% of the damage caused. So this is just your red DPS button. Horn of Lordaeron. Paladin blows the Horde of Lordaeron, which increases total strength and agility of all party members within 30 yards by 6. Last 2 minutes, exclusive with Blessing of Might. So you can't have Might and this up. But hopefully it scales. Like maybe you learn better ranks, or you find glyphs that are higher ranks. Because, you know, by 6 is nothing. It might just scale with your level 2. But said this in the last recording I tried to make, that I hope that this isn't just something that we're constantly swapping between when you're out of combat, because you can freely swap your runes out of combat. So I don't want to, between every pull, be having to switch from Divine Storm to Horn to click Horn to switch back. And the easiest way that I hope they implement it is that this Horn of Lordaeron buff just goes away if the Paladin unlearns it. So it doesn't have like your holy paladins will be able to have it then, because none of this stuff really applies to them so much. But I'm hoping they do something like that so we're not just swapping them all the time. A Seal of Martyrdom fills you with Holy Spirit for 30 seconds, causing each of your melee attacks to deal 30% weapon damage to up to 3 nearby targets. But you lose health equal to 2% of the damage inflicted. While this seal is active, your party members within 40 yards each gain mana equal to 2% of all the damage you take. Unleashing the seal's energy will judge the enemy, instantly causing 70% weapon damage at the cost of health equal to 2% of the damage inflicted. The self-damage portion of it's pretty negligible. Like, you're not going to care too much about this. This thing does say of all damage you take, not just of from the seal. So while the seal is up, you're constantly sharing mana regen to all your party members. Now that could be a thing that you take as a holy paladin in like AoE fights, where you are taking some damage just to help with some mana regen of your party members. That's cool, but if you're not, then you just take Horn. Now hands. Get Beacon of Light. The target becomes a beacon of light to all members of your party or raid within 60-yard radius. Any heals you cast on a party or raid member will also heal the beacon for 100% of the amount healed. Only one target can be a beacon at a time, lasts 1 minute. So this is amazing in raids. Now, you know, you don't have to just flash of light the tank. You can flash of light somebody else to heal the tank. essentially doubling your healing output. In PvP settings, I don't know. There's going to be a much heavier burst damage in Season of Discovery. So, like, you put this on yourself and just start healing other people. Don't know if that matters as much. I think you probably just go Hand of Reckoning, which we'll get to here. But Crusader Strike, an instant strike that causes 75% weapon damage and regenerates 2% of your maximum mana. So this, again, just more Paladin DPS buttons. Hand of Reckoning. Taunts the target to attack you, but has no effect. The target is already attacking you. While you know this ability, the threat bonus of Righteous Fury is increased to 80%. The Righteous Fury causes you to gain mana equal, when healed by others, equal to 25% of the amount healed. Additionally, while Righteous Fury is active, damage which takes you below 35% health is reduced by 20%. Righteous Fury will remain active until cancelled. So Righteous Fury being a 30-minute buff, it really does suck if you accidentally let that fall off in combat and you lose aggro and everybody hates you, right? Also here, you're getting a lot of mana returned. Like, people healing you, it's just going to give you free mana, so you're not going to And on top of that, this might really come down to the PvP thing, where this damage which takes you below 35% health is reduced by 20%. It's going to be really bursty. Classic PvP is already a burst meta, and with all the classes getting additional damage and increases to damage and stuff, this might actually end up being mandatory, even for like red paladins, because you do have to get up close and personal. If you're in Warsong Gulch or the Ashenvale PvP event and you're hoping to go up there and smack face, dealing a little bit of extra damage might not outweigh this burst resistance that you're going to get here. So I'm going to be playing around a lot with that. And then legs. Avenger Shield. Gain the Avenger Shield ability. Hurls a shield. Hurls a holy shield at the enemy, dealing damage that scales with spell power and attack power, and its holy damage, dazing them and then jumping to additional nearby enemies. Affects 3 total targets. Lasts 10 seconds. So it doesn't have the silence of Avenger Shield in later expansions, but do not discount a slow for paladins. Like, we really want a slow. There's a lot of times where I was running around with frost oils and stuff. It's because it's so important. Like, it's so game changing if you can get a slow on your opponent. And if this is instant cast, like, even if it's a short cast, maybe a 1 second, 1.5 second or something, it'll be good. Who knows what kind of cooldown it has too. I'm speculating that it's going to be instant cast with a cooldown, but we'll see. Divine Sacrifice. 30% of all damage taken by party members within 30 yards is redirected to the paladin for 10 seconds. Damage which reduces the paladin below 20% health will break the effect and grant the paladin 10% increased damage and healing done for 10 seconds. This is just awesome in all aspects of healing, but also just in PvP duels and even like group play and stuff. One of the best ways of countering mages is that you would summon a pet with a trinket, and then you would use Blessing of Sacrifice on the pet to make sure that if the mage went to poly you, the pet would either keep him in combat and he'd have to deal with that by some way not hitting the pet, which would then break the sheep. So that's a neat little trick that you can do. And this just gives you an extra way of doing that. Like now you could just run 2 pet trinkets and layer them together in a way that you just can't be polyed, right? For a long time. Exorcist. Exorcism can now be cast on any target and has 100% increased critical strike against undead and demons. This is really good. Just another Paladin DPS button. You might even use this, just depending. Going back to this, the thought here is that this is going to require you to wear a shield, but there's really no penalty in weapon swapping other than losing reckoning stacks, which we're not going to have reckoning anyway because you're only going to be level 25. You're only going to get 1 point to this tier. You're not going to get to here. So there's no drawback to just making the macro that weapon swaps and casts Avenger Shield. So the slow itself might just outweigh this. Interesting enough that the Warlocks transforming into a demon means that this has a 100% increased crit chance against them. So in duel scenarios, maybe you do take that against Warlocks. And Inspiration Exemplar. Your inspiring presence periodically dispels fear and sleep effects on nearby party members. You become a walking tremor totem. Now, we don't know how often this is going to pulse. Like, if it's every 3 or 4 seconds, this is just broken. Especially if it applies to yourself, which I would assume that it would. This is just amazing. This is way better of a way than countering Warlocks than Exorcism being a crit chance there. Like, it's whatever. And then Rebuke. Interrupt spell casting prevents any spell in that school from being cast for 2 seconds. Now, 2 seconds isn't a crazy long lockout time. And in PvP, you are kind of this grindy class. There's certain, like, my first thought was like, oh, cool, I can stop that mage from casting the poly and not care about this. But at 2 seconds, he's just going to cast it again. Like, what am I getting in that 2 second time? Right? I'm getting an auto attack off. I'm maybe going for a heal or maybe layering it with a grenade afterwards into a stun, into a hodge. Like, that could be, but we don't know how long this cooldown is. So if it's got something like a 12, 14, 15 second cooldown, you know, it's not short enough that you can then layer it with at the end of the stuns after this. But if it's like a 10 second cooldown, you might be able to layer things together, especially like later on in the game, where if you're like deep red and you have repentance, you can kind of lock people up as you just kill them. But I don't know. I don't think you're going to need it. I think you're just going to take something like this, and if you get to them and get this rotation off, like, they're probably just dead. Like, I don't know if you even really need much in the way of talents. You could just go with like a simple something like this, where you just kind of take up like these just generally good PvP talents. Hit is never bad. Kings is always going to be useful. And you just get some extra armor here, some armor here. you're probably like, if you're going to keep Divine Storm, maybe it is like you take Read out then for when you have to go sword and board. If you still have to go sword and board to beat warriors and rogues, then you take this. If you don't need to go sword and board, and you can just two-hand out, keep the two-hander and just slap them down, then you just go with this. Alright, so we'll be playing around both ways to see where we end up there. And I'll cover how I expect the changes in duels and PvP between each class and Paladin to play out. I am a PvP Paladin player who raids just to get the good loot to PvP, and I play all specs. Like, I play Shakaden, Holy Ret Reckoning, Deep Ret, and try all kinds of different builds and everything. Like, this kind of stuff is just crazy amounts of damage, and once we get like to 40 and you get Reckoning, then I don't even know, like nobody was surviving wreck bombs anyway. So, maybe you just take the defensive cooldowns, or runes, just to make sure that you survive and they don't. But we'll get into that more some other time. We'll just leave this here for now. Thank you.